Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we are back with another episode of Awesome Gaming News. This is episode number 8. And in this series, we like to talk about awesome news that is coming to the tabletop gaming world, summarizing some of the biggest and best new projects, games, expansions, and things that I think you should be aware of. Things that are coming to your tabletop this year, or hopefully this year, although not everything is shipping soon. Some things are new projects that are just announced and will ship whenever they're ready, as is typically the case. And I think a lot of tabletop veterans are used to projects being ready when they're ready because delays always happen. But there's a lot of really cool things on the horizon. If you guys are not already familiar with this series or with the channel, I'd love to have you stick around. We talk a lot about tabletop games. We talk a lot about science fiction games, Star Wars games, Warhammer, Legion, Armada, X-Wing, board games, all kinds of cool stuff. Love to have you stick around. We are doing a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway right now. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. And I'd love to hear what you're excited about in the gaming world. And maybe there's some cool stuff happening that I failed to mention. Love to hear what you think. Let's go ahead and jump into one of the first big things. Is a new project that just launched from Restoration Games. This is Battle Monsters. Battle Monsters is a new project that they are launching. Now, Restoration Games kind of takes classic games and brings them back to life. Battle Monsters is a game that's sort of inspired by a 1992 game called Battle Masters. This was more of like a medieval, very large game. It was actually played on like a massive mat. And it came out in 1992. It was made by Stephen Baker, who actually works for Restoration Games now. And they've sort of restored this and modified it a little bit to be using Godzilla and Kong and Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla and all of this cool stuff. So there's a really cool Kickstarter running right now. We're going to talk a little bit about this one. It's got a pretty big table presence. There's also a Kickstarter exclusive Mothra if you pledge now that won't be available at retail, so you'll want to check that out. Basically, this is it's a game where you're going to be taking an army against another army. There's cards that you can play. There's like army faction specific cards that you can play that are going to do special things. You're going to have your monster that can power up and attack either your opponent's monster or their or their support units. There's like tanks and infantry and things like that. And you really get a big scale, a sense of scale with like the giant Godzilla and then the tiny little guys next to him and stuff like that, which is a cool thing. It's something I like in my games. It does have dice, it does have mission boards and some cardboard components, as well as the plastic components as well. This comes in a series of boxes. There are going to be a couple of, we'll take a look at them a little bit. There's different boxes, so you're going to have, like a Godzilla and Ghidorah set. You're going to have a Mechagodzilla versus Kong set, and then there'll be also a standalone Kickstarter exclusive Mothra set as well. And that's going to come with both the large minis as well as the support units. And there's different support units that come, depending on whoever you're going to play, which is a pretty cool thing. You're getting a lot of little minis here. And so it looks like a fun one. Now, this one is running right now. I'm going to have links to everything that we're talking about in the video description below. So if you want to head over to Kickstarter and pledge for what looks to be a really cool, groovy game, then you can do that down in the video description below. Head on over there, and maybe I will see you there at some point. This is one I definitely have my eye on. They're not doing all like stretch goals or anything either, which is a kind of a cool thing. They're basically saying, look, there's all kinds of extra exclusives and extra things that you can pledge for. You can pledge more or less. This one's not cheap. It's like it's $150 per box, and the per box is basically 2 monsters and their and all their respective support units and dice and gameplay components and all of that. So it's not cheap. If you want to get everything, of course the cost goes up from there. But it looks like a fun game. It does look really fun. They also have some gameplay videos too if you want to see all of that before you pledge. And there's definitely some cool stuff like that. So it looks fun. Let me know what you guys think. Speaking of crowdfunding projects, we have a very cool one for terrain coming out soon from Monster Fight Club. The Monster Scenery Metropolis 2.0. This is going to be launching soon. There is a pre-launch page where you can sign up so you don't miss this. I'm linking this one down in the description below. I want to talk a little bit about the Metropolis terrain and why I don't think this is a Kickstarter that you're going to want to miss. I first noticed Monster Fight Club when they launched their Metropolis 1.0, their very first Monster City Metropolis terrain. I just started playing Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I saw, wow, really cool inner city terrain. This is awesome. It wasn't made specifically for Marvel Crisis Protocol, but it works flawlessly with that game system. It also works extremely well with the Cyberpunk RPG, and as well as, of course, what came shortly thereafter, which was the Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone, which is one of my favorite games. It's a really good game, and you know, I know some of you watching probably don't play it. I'm telling you, you're missing out because it's one of the best tabletop games today. Honestly, it really is. So this works really, really well with that. One of the things that I think is so great about Combat Zone is it takes full advantage of the terrain. Really gives you a lot of options. You know, you're not just climbing up and climbing down. You can throw people off of buildings, and depending how far they fall, they can take more damage. They can die from it. You know, all kinds of really weird and interesting and random and hilarious things that can sometimes happen. So very cool stuff. But this, with Monster Scenery Metropolis 2.0, they have this whole new system now. I did an interview with John at one of my Adepticon stream videos, and we talked a lot about all of the ways that these new systems interconnect. Again, you're still going to have a lot of those classic buildings. You can see, like, the image I have here shows a lot of the classic buildings and a lot of the blocks that are going to interconnect both with the new building connectors as well as with the cargo containers. I've been doing a lot of videos with the cargo containers. I have a whole cargo shipyard video that I'm going to be putting together hopefully soon. I still have cargo containers to paint, but I have almost all of them painted now, and it's a lot, folks. It's going to be very, very cool. But another thing that I think is really cool about this one, for you Star Wars gamers out there, you know, says not everybody here is down with Cyberpunk, and I gotta respect that, even if I disagree. But I definitely have a lot of Star Wars gamers here. There is some terrain in here that I think is going to really appeal to the Star Wars gamer in you. Now, this style of building that we're looking at right now has a very kind of corporate gray or almost imperial gray sort of look to it. Now, there were some of these, again, if you watch some of the coverage from Adepticon, and if you look at some of the shows that they've been at, these have sort of an alternate version that they've had on display that looks almost like it's got the Imperial Death Star sort of lighting, which could make it really cool for interior battles or sort of Coruscant, or you're fighting on board the Death Star, or like really large scale. So not really interior like narrow corridors, but interior as in we're, you know, fighting in scaffolding or in the center of a Star Destroyer, and it's just a really big area, open area, but it has a lot of different corridors and elevator shafts and things like that. Anyway, this stuff is really cool and has a lot of versatility in the different vibes that it works with, but it works really well with Star Wars. Also, not just Star Wars Legion, but I think if you're also playing Shatterpoint or Marvel Crisis Protocol, where you have to have like those different levels for Shatterpoint or throwable terrain, this stuff breaks down very easily. You can throw individual sections and stuff like that for Shatterpoint, stuff like so, or rather for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So a lot of options with this new system and the way it's set up. And another thing that's really cool about this stuff is it's so much fun just to play with. Like, you get it, and then you're like, oh, how many things can I build? What kind of new... You can use the same kind of set and build it a million different ways. It kind of awakens that inner Lego player, that inner child within you. So, again, very cool stuff. Some of the stuff that they do on these Kickstarters aren't always available. They do limited production runs and stuff, too, and some things go away and maybe come back later. Some things still haven't come back from the first Kickstarter. So again, it's a great way to kind of secure what you think you're going to want and lock that in. And also, they do a lot of printing right here in the United States. So any future tariff worries or whatever are heavily mitigated because they do so much made in the United States, which is also a thing that I didn't used to focus on as much, but I think we all have to kind of pay a little bit more attention to now. So I felt that that was important to point out. Let's keep moving on. We have some more stuff to talk about. In the world of board games and crowdfunding, we have Tekken, the board game, coming from Go On Board. Now, this is a new game that I had my eye on. I initially was looking at fighting games a long time ago when going back to like restoration games, and when they started to do Unmatched, and based off of Star Wars Epic Duels, I always liked the fact that, hey, I can just do like me versus you, but then we can add more players in there. And this one caught my attention because it has up to 8 players can play. You can do tournaments, you can do big epic matches, you can do regular one-on-one matches, and it is going to feature amazing miniatures and characters from the Tekken franchise. How many of you remember playing Tekken? Like Tekken tournaments. When I was in the army, we used to do a lot of like fighting game tournaments in the barracks, and Tekken and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 were like 2 of the top games that we used to do. So pretty cool stuff. Anybody play Power Stone too? That was another really fun one. Point is, these style of games, there's not too many like fighting board games, but when I have played them, I've always had a blast with them. And the fact that it's multiplayer as well, it's not just a one-on-one kind of thing, is also very cool. There's going to be a miniatures and cards is how you kind of control different combos and your actions and things like that. So every character is going to have like asymmetric abilities. You're also going to have card combos and things like that to help you play the game and to sort of master your play style with your chosen character. And there's a lot of characters in Tekken too, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things available with this campaign. Hopefully, we'll get a early look at this in the not too distant future, which I'm hoping we can. Onto the world of grim futures. There is a new Battletech coming out called Battletech Gothic. Not to be confused with Battlefleet Gothic, which is a game that I wish would come back. I've been looking at a game called Steel Rift recently that has that we looked at a little bit at Adepticon. I have more mech videos coming out soon, although I haven't played Battletech yet. It's definitely a game that has been on my radar, and they did announce a new thing called Battletech Gothic. Now, what this is it's going to basically be like a new product that's going to have a new starter, new rule book. It could be an entry point for some people, but it also is the first sort of separate universe for Battletech that they're releasing now. This means that it's still going to use the same Battletech standard rules, but they're going to have all these different mechs, different aesthetic. It's got a whole lore and history and storyline with it. From what I understand, again, this isn't a game that I play yet. Again, maybe someday. Again, I'm always looking to expand and try new things. But from what I understand and from what I've read, it looks to like it will potentially be compatible with the standard Battletech. So you should be able to, like, if your friend doesn't play Battletech Gothic, but you do, maybe you guys can like go against each other and things like that. Not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of how it looks, because it does say that it's going to use the standard Battletech rules, and then of course they will add some new mechanics and some new things with this particular universe, and then the mechs and the stuff that comes in this new launch. So Battletech fans have some cool stuff to come out. I remember this was one of those things that was announced at Adepticon, and I remember a lot of people were getting confused because they saw, Battlefleet Gothic. They thought Battletech Gothic. They thought Battlefleet Gothic, and a lot, because I know that there are a lot of, especially with Armada no longer being supported by Atomic Mass Games, a lot of people thought Battlefleet Gothic might get kind of brought back soon, and who knows, maybe it will. But this is not to be confused with Battlefleet Gothic. And again, we'll have links to all of these games and all of these new things so that you can go learn more down in the video description below. Moving on, we have something Star Wars related to talk about. So this is a cool thing. This isn't a crowdfunding thing, but we do have the new set Legends of the Force coming out for Star Wars Unlimited, and they've been doing previews for a little while, because this is supposed to be coming out, I believe, in June. But they actually have some stuff from Legends coming into Legends of the Force, and this is a big deal for me. Even though I'm not really playing much Star Wars Unlimited anymore. I kind of got into it a little bit in the early days, and then I've sort of teetered out because I'm waiting for them to release a digital. I'm hoping that they can release a digital app or something kind of like Hearthstone or MTG Arena or something like that for this game, because I'd love to play it more. I just have such a hard time with a card game that has, rapid releases. you might not necessarily think that these are rapid releases, but for me, they're a little too. One a year would be plenty for me, because again, this isn't like only game that I'm going to play. So they're doing like 3 a year or something like that, and it's just a little too much. And I run into difficulty with sorting and then trying to build new decks and going through thousands of other cards and things like that. So I'm holding out for the digital version. But I still keep my eye on it because it is a fun game. Star Wars Unlimited is a solid, fun game. And it's cool that they're bringing Darth Revan and Darth Malak into this game from KOTOR, the Knights of the Old Republic game series, which is, of course, definitely a beloved game. It's supposed to be a remake of KOTOR that's been in the works for a while. Hopefully that does come out sooner rather than later. But great gaming system, brings back a lot of great memories playing Knights of the Old Republic. And there's also a lot of other things. If you go and check out the link in the description below, read the article where they're talking about these. There's some other art and some other things in there that definitely seem that are also inspired from KOTOR, which is cool. Now, it doesn't seem like they're going full-blown Legends with this set, and I was initially disappointed because all of the previews that they started with for the Legends of the Force set were just existing characters. Like, there were no Legends as it applies to the EU, which Disney has named Star Wars Legends, kind of its own universe, kind of like the MCU versus the different comic universes. But Legends being its own universe, it was like, okay, well they named this set Legends of the Force, and Legends was in big bold. It made it seem like, hey, they're going to be pulling Legends in here, and it didn't seem like they were going to do that at first. But then they had dropped this, and at least there are 2 Legend characters that are showing up in the game. So, as of I don't know if the whole expansion has been fully spoiled, so it's possible. I guess there could be some more still, but these are obviously 2 very fan-loved characters. Well, Revan specifically. I don't know if there's a whole lot of people that are crazy about Malak, but Revan has the whole purple and red lightsaber thing. Revan's cool, and a lot of people have really liked Revan for a long time. So it's nice to see that they can do that. Maybe they only have the license to do KOTOR stuff, so we'll have to see. I don't think we're going to get like Jorah Sabaoth and Mara Jade and Kir Kanos and and Star Killer and other Legends things that I would love to see. And I think that may be a little bit farther out, but I was hoping we were going to get that, but at least we did get some. So that's a cool thing, and it also means that this isn't just for this card game. This is also something that Asmodee has been able to make, which does sort of make me think, could we see stuff like Revan in Star Wars Legion? It's an interesting thing to think about because, I feel like he probably would show up in Shatterpoint first because you don't have to build a whole army around him or something like that. Or maybe you just make him a merc. Maybe they just do it like you're an out-of-time mercenary. You're just going to show up and support whoever you want. There's a lot of different ways that they could get creative in trying to add him. So maybe something like that is possible. It would be really cool, and I'd love to see it. So that's exciting to me, and I thought I'd share it with you. And then I'll put the link to this article that shows some even more cool stuff in the description below. Now I want to talk about something also science fiction-y, spacey, but something that I'm very, very excited about. Very, very, I'm super excited about. Starcraft, the miniatures game, the tabletop miniatures game. This is a big deal. This is by Archon. Archon has done a lot of really cool games. So we looked at a Masters of the Universe game that they've done. They have really good miniatures. We looked at a lot of terrain from Archon, and I was able to talk with the guys over at Archon at Adepticon at length about this and other games. They also have Starside, which is also a really cool game system, a whole universe that they have stuff coming out for. Armada fans want to watch for that. X-Wing fans may want to watch for that. Very cool. A lot more to talk about that in the future. But Starcraft, this also was sort of teased right at the beginning of Adepticon. They didn't have miniatures to show us there, but here's some of basically what you can expect for this game, because when I saw this picture, my first question when I was able to talk to Archon at their booth at Adepticon was, these look like kind of larger miniatures. This almost looks like maybe it could be like a Shatterpoint size miniature or something like that. Does this mean that we're only going to see 3 or 4 guys versus 3 or 4 guys? Is this going to be like a small skirmish game? And that's not exactly what they're going for. They're going for something in between. So this is going to be a full-blown miniatures skirmish game, like my army versus your army. But it's not going to be as big as Warhammer or Legion. In other words, you're not going to need like a 6x4 table. They want this to be kitchen table playable. So what they're current now, granted, everything that I am hearing is all still subject to change because again, they're still in the creation mode right now, and they're building up the hype because this is probably not going to launch on crowdfunding. I don't think it's going to launch this year. I'm guessing maybe next year. But I mean, all they have said so far is that it'll be ready when it's ready. But here's some of the details. They're aiming for about 20 to 40 miniatures per side. This kind of puts it in that realm of sort of a skirmish size, a spearhead if you play Age of Sigmar, combat patrol if you play 40k, recon if you play Star Wars Legion. So not necessarily a full 6x4 game. They want it to fit on a 3x3, and they're going to be doing a kind of a system where you have reinforcements. So you don't necessarily start with all of your force on the board at the very, very beginning. You may start out, and as guys die, you can reinforce, and you can drop more people in like halfway through. And it's one of those ways that you can get a lot of stuff on a 3x3 without it feeling like everybody is shoulder to shoulder bumped together. So that is a very cool way to do it, to have a pretty big sized army, but without overloading the table and still being a kitchen table size playable game, because that's a big deal for a lot of people. Not that many people are super keen on, getting a game that they're going to need to go to a big store to play, or they're going to need to buy a 6x4 table for. Whereas most kitchen tables are like actually 35 by 35, so they're just a little too small for like X-Wing on the 36 by 36 inch playmat, or the 3 foot by 3 foot playmat. So they're aiming for just under the 3 foot by 3 foot. That's kind of where they're looking at doing it right now. Now, because this is a skirmish game, it's primarily going to be focused on the infantry, and that's going to have the heroes. They have the license for all of Starcraft, so if there's a hero that you've seen in the Starcraft games, you're probably going to see them in this game. If there's a unit that you've seen in the Starcraft games, if they're not super, super large, like a battle cruiser, you have a pretty good chance of seeing it in this game. They did tell me that it was possible to see maybe some of the smaller vehicles, so that makes me think vultures, possibly like the motorcycle size, but probably I don't think we'll quite get siege tanks, but that's a possibility. They did say that in an interview that currently the largest unit that they're looking at doing is the Ultralisk, which is actually really big. And and Archon can do some big stuff. I've looked at dragons from them, and they do really good miniatures. They also have this whole acrylic type of stuff that comes with the miniatures. So like what you're looking at here, you see in like some of these crystals and some of the lightning on Kerrigan and stuff like that. Like if you don't want to paint these and just want to play them straight out of the box, you're already going to have like some fancy color effects, and they're going to look cool right out of the box. So you can kind of work with that. They really do some cool stuff. They also are going to use terrain. In this game, there's going to be terrain that comes in the core set or in the box. They have the option to do like pre-painted terrain, so you won't necessarily have to play with like gray unprimed terrain. You can actually, have painted terrain straight out of the box, which is really cool. They're not going to do that for the miniatures, though, because, again, the hobbyists in us might want to actually paint our Space Marines and stuff like that, especially since, and when you play in StarCraft, your Space Marines don't always have to be blue, right? You might be the red player, you might be, so, like, a lot of cool ways to kind of customize Space Marines, which is definitely something that a lot of us like to do, So that is really cool. They're going to be using card-based activation, and they're going to have custom dice is the current plan right now, that are going to have all kinds of special mechanics built into the dice that you don't necessarily have to have a whole bunch of extra rules, like, oh, you can do this if this happens and this happens. No, if the dice has it, you can do that. That's one of the things they're looking at doing. And they're also looking at having sub-factions as well, so you won't just have to be just Kerrigan in the Zerg. You could be like a sub-faction of Zerg, especially if you played through the campaign, you notice that a lot of people broke away. Protoss have their sub-factions. Definitely have that also with the Space Marines, with the Terrans as well. You have all kinds of splinter cells and sub-factions within them as well. So that is also going to be a thing. Not going to do full-blown like codexes like 40K does. It's more like going to be just a rule book that has all the rules, and so think maybe a little bit closer to like a Legion style rule book where there's just one rule book and you don't necessarily have to go buy different rule books for whatever you're going to want to play. So that's a little bit about what we know about StarCraft, and all of that, of course, is subject to change. But it looks really cool, looks really groovy right now, and I think they have a lot of high hopes to want to really expand this game and do as much as they can. In an interview, they even were talking about, could we do a Colossus? And initially it was like, that's going to be way too big. And they're like, what? Who knows? I mean, maybe someday, So if it does really well, you see more, it sells and does really, become successful. Who knows? Maybe we'll see even larger stuff. Maybe we'll see a battle cruiser someday. Because again, they can do some really cool stuff. They have this whole Port Haven expansion right now, where it's like kind of like a terrain / D&D, compatible stuff, and they have these ships, and we got to look at one of these ships at Adepticon, and the ships are massive. They're like 3 feet long, and they're like all of the decks come off, and you can go underneath there, and you can magnetize, and they can do those pre-painted as well. Just magnificent stuff that Archon is doing. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. We'll be waiting with bated breath to check out more StarCraft, the tabletop miniatures game from Archon, as it becomes available. That's the last big game I want to talk about, but there is one thing I wanted to talk about in closing, and this applies primarily to United States-based viewers, but in good news, I guess it's good news. It is good news. I'll say that it's good enough news. Is that the tariffs have temporarily gone down tremendously, and this is kind of a good thing. It's a good thing in a storm of uncertainty, because I did a whole video talking about this. I'm not going to go into it too much, but for at least for 90 days, there's been a pause on the 145% tariffs on imports from China. This has a massive effect on board games. Well, it has been reduced down to 30%. Now that's still significant, because a 30% tariff is still potentially a 30% price hike on all of our products. But it's a whole lot better than 145% price hike, which is, and again, that's, this is significant because it might mean that a lot of companies that were about to shut their doors permanently now can possibly stay open, and hopefully that, smaller price increases can kind of make up the difference. It might mean that a Kickstarter that you had that was on the water already now can actually possibly be docked and shipped and delivered. There may be a small upcharge. Some companies are already talking about, increasing prices a little bit by somewhere between 20 to 30%. Now, a 30% tariff is on the declared value. It's not on the actual MSRP necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a close to a 30% price increase across the board to kind of help. Even if they don't need to do a full 30%, more and more companies are probably a little scared because of the uncertainty. And again, this can change at any time. After the 90 days, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I bring this up because it is nice to see that the 145 insanity level tariffs that we were seeing that threatened to completely destroy the tabletop gaming industry has been reduced to a still high but less insane 30%. Still awfully high. It can still do a lot of damage, but it's manageable at this point, and hopefully it goes back down. Hopefully it doesn't stay at 30% forever. But so, like, again, it's a sign of somewhat improvement, and I thought that was worth mentioning. I'm not going to linger on that anymore, though, because that's going to wrap up the video. I'd like for you to check out all of the cool games that we talked about today. Links are going to be down in the video description below, and of course, as a lot of these come out, and if we were able to get review copies of some of these, maybe we'll talk about them more in closer detail. And of course, make sure you subscribed, like the video, share it with your friends. It's nice to have some good news out there and some exciting news, and that's why I started this video series, because I wanted awesome gaming news for everybody out there. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this whole channel possible. Thank you so much for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.